What's so great about them is when people say, I feel so stuck, I don't know what to do. Instead of going into the analysis of why or waiting for the perfect sign or the perfect moment, switch the question to, well,
Mm.
what are three micro yeses you could do right now? Like, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. Should I stay or should I go? I don't know. Should I start that business? I don't know. What are three micro yeses?
Hello, beautiful souls. You're listening to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancis. Did you know that you can listen to this show everywhere podcasts are found? It's true. Now, I have 3 free gifts just for you. First gift, I give away a new reading each week to a person who's left a 5-star positive review of this show, then submitted it to me using the contact form at theangelmedium.com/contact. I hope I'm calling your number next. Second gift, if you'd like a new daily angel message, join me on Insta at Angel Podcast. Third free gift, if you'd like to know the name of one of your guardian angels so that you can work with them even more closely, go to the homepage of my website, theangelmedium.com, and submit your contact info at the very top. I'll email you back personally with the name of one of your angels. Okay, as we begin the show, I want you to feel the presence of your angels surrounding you. And just know that the loving, positive messages you resonate with today are messages for you from your angels and loved ones on the other side. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Angels and Awakening podcast. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancis. And friends, if you've ever thought to yourself, I feel stuck, I don't know which way to go, I don't know where spirit is leading me, I don't know how the angels are talking to me, today is the episode for you. Friends, we're going to mix in the angels with my friend here, Britt Frank. She has the newer book and now a new workbook to go along with it, The Science of Stuck: Breaking Through Inertia to Find Your Path Forward. Britt, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love your work over on Instagram. I love just how you say things. I think you say things in a way that really breaks through where people are like, okay, I've heard that before, but the way that Britt says it makes me think completely different about everything. You say that you don't need motivation to get going, to find your path. And I think that this is where we should start today because I think that's a huge misconception. Can you talk to us about this and where you need to start other than motivation?
Isn't it such a relief? I found it very comforting to know that motivation is not the secret sauce. Some people are like, I like being motivated. I'm like, that's great. You are not the people for whom I work. And that's not my story. My story is, why can't I do the thing? Why can't I start the thing? Or why can't I stop doing the thing? So motivation, this myth that we need to feel like it, that we need to feel the inspiration, that we need to feel the I want to do in order to do, is one of the biggest myths that keeps us stuck. Now, and I really love mixing. I mean, I love mixing the things that have a harder time being quantified and locked down by science. But like when they all line up together, it's really nice. And that, I don't know what that is happening behind me.
For
That's
anybody watching
hilarious.
over on YouTube, as you said that, the angels just gave you like fireworks behind your screen. That was wild.
I have done like, that has never happened in any podcast I have ever done ever. So, okay. Woo. Okay. Let's get, where was I? Motivation is not needed. And here's why. Motivation is the thing that happens after we start. And anyone who's ever had the feeling of, well, once I get to the gym, I'm fine. Once I get to the party, I'm fine. That's because motivation happens after, not before. And we don't need to feel like it to do the thing. You don't have to feel motivated to get unstuck. Now, the next question is, well, then what's going on? But let's start with no motivation required.
Amazing. So no motivation. I know that you do talk about micro yeses. Tell us a little bit about that.
I love micro yeses because they have such an amazing mystical component, but they're so grounded in neuroscience and they're so practical. So that's sort of the
Mm.
intersection of both, which makes me very, very happy. So micro yeses are smaller than small steps. They are smaller than baby steps. Micro yeses are the smallest possible thing that you can do easily. So assume if you're not able to easily bang it out, it's not a micro yes. Micro means so small you almost feel silly doing it. Like you're not going, and I'll give you an example. So a micro yes, when I was addicted to crystal meth and just spun out and just really like in no shape to feel my feelings or address my trauma or come up with a plan or a vision. My micro yes was to sit on the phone with this woman who talked me through eating a yogurt spoonful by spoonful for an
Wow.
hour. Put the spoon in the yogurt, put the spoon in your mouth. That's a micro yes. A micro yes for fitness is not take a walk around the block. It's put your left shoe by the door. And a micro yes for meditation or journaling is not write one page. It's get the pen, hold the
Yeah.
pen. Now you're done. Tomorrow, get the pen, write one letter, not even a word, a letter, and then you're done. Micro yeses work because they allow us to keep moving even when we don't feel like it, even when we're scared, even when we're feeling like, well, what? Because you're not doing anything that's going to cost you anything. It's so small, nothing bad is going to happen. And that's where our brains can keep moving. Stuck becomes unstuck the second we do anything, no matter how small. A micro yes over time will kick in that motivation that we're looking for, and then momentum takes over and we're off to the races.
It's interesting. And I think I've talked about this before, definitely in the membership, but I'm not sure if I've talked about it here. If you took a circle as just like life force energy, right? This circle that just goes round and round, but then you put it stationary, like on the floor, the circle laying down, and you pulled it up like a slinky, the circle then spirals upward. And what I see over and over and over again in my sessions with folks is that the angels always talk about you don't have to be making huge leaps forward, but your life and this circle really doesn't always look to spirit like a circle. It looks like a slinky pulled upwards, that you're just spiraling up and up and up and up as your consciousness unfolds, as your story unfolds, as you grow. And I'm saying this because you're an EO, entrepreneur organization. I was a part of that for a while. I know there's also a great organization. If any women are like, I love my own business, I want to connect with other entrepreneurs. There's another one called Chief, which is amazing for women. But you get to meet all of these different beautiful souls within the world who are doing the most incredible, fabulous thing. And you start to feel so at home with these big dinners that you go to with them because they have so much fear. They have so much anxiety. They are just like the person who is doing the micro yes. It's that everybody, no matter whether you're the Queen of England, King of England now, or a president or of a company, anybody, you could be Elon Musk, his consciousness is still unfolding in this spiral upward. And so, what I really found interesting, and one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on, a couple different reasons, is those micro yeses might feel really small, but they're keeping you walking up the circle, the spiral.
Yes, exactly. And then shout out to EO. I'm not actually a member of EO.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
I did a talk for them and I fell in love with
Yeah.
all of them. And so I'm just like a big hype girl for that organization now.
Yay. Yeah.
So, but yes, micro yeses will keep you walking. And I don't know, I think Julia Cameron might have said this. You probably know. If you take one step forward, the universe takes 10,000 back. And that's true on, again, both a meta and a very practical in these earth bodies, kind of grounded in the brain nervous system science, because those micro yeses then compound. And then 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. One micro yes plus one micro yes equals me eating a yogurt, and now I'm sitting on this podcast talking to you. So it sort of unlocks that acceleration sort of wormhole through once you get them going.
Yeah.
And I cannot, and again, here's the caveat with them though, because I'll have people message me and say, well, I'm doing my micro yeses and nothing's changing. I'm still stuck. Okay, but in order to bank the micro yes and have it work, you can't beat yourself up after you do it. So
Right.
if I put my left shoe by the door, yay, I did my micro yes. If I then get on the couch and say, oh, well, yeah, I put my shoe by the door, but this is stupid. Everything is stupid. I'm not going to get anywhere. That's the dumbest, like, that's just not, well, you're going to undo your benefit. You don't need to have you don't need to create a social media reel around it, although yay if you do, but like you can just honor, yay, I did a thing. Cool. Better text someone and have a micro yes buddy so you can share these silly little things with other people. And then you get a double upward vortex, which is really fun when you can bank off of someone else's micro wins by, oh, like they did that. I can do that. Well,
Yeah.
I did that. They can do that. And then together you're creating an up spiral, which is very fun.
So you're a speaker, you'll get this. I did a TED talk earlier this year. And when you do a TED talk, they really walk you through the science of how to give a talk, what it needs to be. I mean, I think I did this thing 8 times before I actually went live. And each time you do it, for me, new information kept going in, like, oh, I should cut this out, put this in. And Spirit ended up showing me this mathematical equation by the end of that process, which is, and I believe it's a matter of listening to your intuition. Like your angels are always guiding you, your guides, your loved ones on the other side. They're always showing you the way forward. It's just a matter of like, are you listening? Are you taking action? So the mathematical equation is, some people listen 2 times a year. Like legit, they just tune in on the big decisions. I got this career thing coming up. What do I do? I'm in this challenge with a partner. What do I do? Some people listen once a week, right? Like 52 times a year. Some people listen 100 times a day. And that comes out to 36,500 times a day. And then Spirit goes, Julie, multiply that over the course of 80 years. You know, let's say from the time you're 20 till the time you're 100. Some people listen like 160 times in their entire lifetime. Some people listen 3 million. That's a huge difference in energy.
Yes, it is. An outcome.
An outcome. An outcome. And so I think that that number really gets to the point of, you know, some people, a lot of people, I think, and I was stuck in this for a long time. We look at others to compare ourselves. Where am I in, you know, the plot of humanity? How am I doing compared to everybody else? Why are others more far advanced than I am? I think when you're just taking even those micro yeses forward, because it's hard and it takes courage and it takes bravery, you're part of that population that's going to listen 3 million times in their lifetime.
Yes. And the microscopic size steps that we're talking about don't require inspiration, or they don't feel like anything. It's not even that they don't feel good. They don't feel bad. It feels like nothing is happening. But again, just because it doesn't feel like anything is happening does not negate the reality that a lot is happening. Each micro step forward sends so many messages on all levels, from the energetic to the neurological and the cellular level. Micro steps do a lot of jobs, none of which you can feel or see, but they work. I mean, you can't argue with it. And what's so great about them is when people say, I feel so stuck, I don't know what to do, instead of going into the analysis of why or waiting for the perfect sign or the perfect moment, switch the question to, well, what are 3 micro yeses you could do right now? Like, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. Should I stay or should I go? I don't know. Should I start that business? I don't know. What are 3 micro yeses? And that
Exactly.
unlocks the whole thing.
Ready for a little getaway that completely resets your energy? We're hosting a live in-person spiritual retreat called A Whole New You. It's the weekend of October 4th in Oak Brook, Illinois. This spiritual retreat is all about your own personal healing and growth, reconnecting with yourself, learning to connect with your angels. And I'm going to talk about all new angels that I've never talked about anywhere before. And you're going to leave with more personal peace, purpose, clarity, and confidence than ever before. Learn more and see the itinerary at theangelmedium.com/retreat. That's theangelmedium.com/retreat. Links are in the show notes. And friend, I cannot wait to meet you and hug you in person. I've got a great story that goes along with it. So I was having one of the hardest days of my life, decided to leave my grandma's like end of life where I got to say goodbye to her early. And I was so upset when I got to the airport. I didn't know what to do. And I just felt so broken inside. And I just said, spirit angels, what do I do? And I heard, go sit down, which I never do in restaurants. I never sit down and have a bite to eat. Go sit down. You're hungry, eat something, go through security, go grab a bottle of water at the gift shop, go sit down at your gate. Like that was it. And it sounds stupid. Like it felt stupid. And I remember calling a girlfriend, while I was sitting at the restaurant and she's like, just follow, just follow. So I did. And I got to the gift shop to get my water, followed an order. And I passed this woman and I go, I know her. Where do I know her from? It was Laura Lynn Jackson, the woman who wrote the book Signs. And I've been trying to have her on the podcast for like 5 years. Well, this was in 2023. She ended up coming on to tell this story because it was just too good. But when I feel broken, when I feel lost, when I feel completely at a loss that I don't know what's the next step to go, I sit down and I say, angels, tell me what to do. And it tends to be something that sounds so little, but it's not.
Exactly. It's not in hindsight, looking back on the narrative arc of your journey, those are the moments that precede the moments.
Yeah. So you have this story. Can we share it and have you share your story of how you got unstuck? Because addiction, I think, is something that we all have in one format or another. We're all addicted to one thing. How did you break free?
So first, it's so important for me to say it wasn't I had an insight and I saw the light and then I turned and changed. It was not like that. It was a lot of false starts. It was a lot of sideways, forwards, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, laying flat on my face for years. And I really like the Hollywood story of I had that moment of insight and then everything changed and it was not that nice and clean for me. It was
I don't think it is for anybody.
I don't either. But if that's your story and that's like your thing, I celebrate and honor you. I just can't relate. Not my story.
For sure.
And like you said, it's a lot of people's story. And so I tried the very, like the way of addiction is your battle and you're going to fight it and you're going to beat it. And all of these battle war metaphors that I later learned were priming my brain to release more stress hormones. Because if the enemy of your well-being lives inside you, you can't escape. There's nowhere to go. And so I used, when things started finally working, the primary ways I got unstuck, with obviously solving for safety and resources and all of that, I had more choices than some people do, and I honor that. But what if addiction is not a monster in your head, but what if addiction is a terrified little child part of you screaming that she's in pain? And that changes everything from your fighting yourself to your learning to uncover those lost hidden parts of you and learning to love them home. That changed everything for me.
Now, how did you start? Like, where did you even begin with that?
Well, I was living in a fundamentalist cult at the time, and I stumbled upon a non-approved book because you're not allowed to read anything but the books they give you. I stumbled upon a book by Dr. Richard Schwartz, who created internal family systems, which is
Mhm.
a modal, like a type of therapy that I now practice and very much co-sign. It's wonderful. So I sat there with that book, sort of like in one of the pews, just sort of reading it. Oh, there's the again. What is
Your
going
angels are
on?
talking to you through fireworks today and those little orbs.
This is so funny. Okay, so I'm just like, what? So I'm reading this book about, hey, everyone has multiple parts of their personality, and what if every part of you was valuable and precious and wonderful? Not all behaviors are valuable and precious and wonderful, but what if every single part of you was there doing a job on your behalf? And
Yeah.
so that book unlocked a path that eventually led me to doing that therapy and also doing somatic work and on like honoring the fact that all of these mental processes happen inside a body and a nervous system. And then it was a very slow process of reparenting and unlearning and reinstalling and uninstalling and saying, I don't want to do this. It's too hard. But when I learned that even our scariest symptoms are messengers and they're trying to help, not hurt, that really did change the whole orientation of everything.
I want to go into this deeper because I don't know that everybody really gets what we mean by this. But when you start to look at life this way, which is why I've actually stopped having a lot of people on that do a lot of shadow work, because I just don't agree with how it's being done. We don't want to get rid of the ego. We don't want to get rid of the shadow. It's that when you start to see that every emotion, every vibration, every thought that comes up is guiding you to a piece of information that's within you that you need to have an awareness of, a presence of, in order to love it or move through it up the spiral of life to your next conscious evolution. Life becomes very, very different. And those pains that we feel within don't become bad. We're not wrong people for having them. We get to love ourselves on a deeper level and start to have boundaries and come into a whole nother place of healing. We talk about that, but then also once you get there, that can be hard because once you've gone through all of that work to do that healing, you're not really willing to let other people come in and undo the healing that you've done. And that kind of creates a different phase of life as well.
It's so true. I'm so glad you named that about the way that some are teaching the work. I just feel so sad when people talk about killing your ego because I'm like,
Yeah.
but like your ego helps filter all of like if you didn't have your ego, you wouldn't be a functional human being. The
Right.
problem isn't the presence of ego. The problem isn't even the presence of some of the really scary thoughts. And I think them too. And again, full disclosure, I go to therapy, I take medication, I do all of the things that I need to do to support my body and my brain. But even our scariest things are not the problem. It's
Mhm.
when we have IFS, internal family systems, which honors this part of my brain feels like this, part of it feels like that. You're not broken. It's just that we're all comprised of multiple aspects of our minds are not one thing. It's a whole family of people with different motivations and roles and likes and dislikes happening running around up in your psyche. But when you understand the job they're all doing, you don't need to get rid of them, which is such good news because you can't. I tried for years to silence the voice, like kick your inner critic to the curb. No, give your inner critic a hug and a snack because they're a scared little kid who doesn't know how the world works. It's like, imagine if you could stop fighting are fighting all the parts of myself that I learned to hate or fear ended up being parts that are the most valuable members of my inner society. That does not mean I let my little drug addicts run the show. It's still in there to think, oh, I feel sad, let's go use. It's not hard for me to not use anymore. Other things are hard, that's not one of them, but the voice is still there. The voice isn't the problem and it's not the enemy. It's just a little part of me giving me information. And some days I need to really attend. Some some days I can just remind her we're okay, but it depends on how I'm doing, how much work is needed in a moment.
Well, and I think that we're talking about something that this is really, really valuable, beneficial information to the listener because there is a difference between when what I believe God, universe, source, your angels, your loved ones on the other side come in and communicate, and they're never going to bypass your free will, right? Like they're never going to make decisions for you. They're never going to bring through unloving information. It's only kind, loving, positive information that can only help you and help others. It's just love. So there does have to be, but this is where I think most people get stuck, is that there are a lot of teachers out there who then stop there, right? Like then everything else is bad and wrong. It's not. We have to learn to distinguish that there's really multiple different voices within, and all either come from love or come from like a fear. But the parts that come from fear aren't bad or wrong. They just need the sensitivity and the awareness. Where I think that being a spiritual teacher and having massive amounts of people come in, like if 100 people or 1,000 people come in for a course, it's hard to guide everybody on an individual level, but you have to really be kind and gentle and hold a person's mental space in order for them to not. And it's so easy. And I think that the cultish mentality is so easy for people to dive into. Is there a part of us, you know, because you've studied this, is there a part of us that almost wants to make ourselves bad and wrong?
Oh, I definitely did it, studied it, did it, learned
Yeah.
it, lived it. Being bad and wrong is not, and again, we're not dealing in good or bad. Let's just look, and I love that you do the
Yeah.
same. Like, let's just look at it as information.
Yeah.
If I am the problem, if it is all me, and I'm not talking about accountability, I'm talking about I am just going to beat myself senselessly with the sense of wrongness and unlovability and unworthiness. Well, that does create a pretty guaranteed outcome. Our brains do not like uncertainty. Our brains, like on a basic level, like patterns and predictions and familiarity over health. Like our brain will prioritize familiarity over health and wellness every time. And
Wow.
so if I'm wrong, I have now obliterated uncertainty. And that's an important thing to know. It's not like you're doing it on purpose. It's like, I didn't know that my brain would rather the familiarity of the bad over the uncertainty of the potential good. That's why hope is difficult, because it's uncertain and it feels really icky sometimes. Now, feeling like I am the problem, I am terrible, doesn't feel good, but there's a comfort in it on a brain basis that's like, well, at least I know what this is.
Mm-hmm. And I get that. I get that on a deep level. You know, when my daughter was sick, she was born as a medically fragile child. And at one point, she had like 11 doctors and 12 different therapists. And we kept going in with this hope to every new doctor, being like, and she coded twice within the first 6 months. She was tube fed completely, but for the first 3 years. We would go in to every new doctor and we took her around the country to find like the solutions that she needed. You had so much hope. And then by the time you've seen like 30 doctors or 12, you go, I don't know. I don't know if this person is going to have the answer, but I have to keep going. I have to keep pushing to try and find out. I think that that's so fascinating what you said about hope. Are there steps that people take that you found that scientifically help them to get to a place where they can hope?
So it's so interesting, and I cannot say enough good things about the internal family systems model. Like it's just so good. It's interesting that the most whole I have ever felt required me to honor all of the fragmented pieces. And so I could not feel wholeness, hope, joy, or any of those good things that we want in a sustainable way until I recognize that the part of me that's hoping is not the me. There's a me. IFS calls it the self, capital S self. You can call it Christ consciousness, core self, whatever you want to, by whatever name you call it, there's the observer and the part of you having the experience. Hope, like the uncertainty and discomfort of hope, becomes palatable when the part of me that's hoping is being led by the self, who is going to be, you know what, you hope. And if this doesn't work out, I'm still here and I still have you. And that allows for the grossness of uncertainty when you can have that separation in your psyche of self and parts. You are not the parts are not you. There's that core self that's tied to source that connects all of us. And that's who should be in charge of all of the things.
Wow. You have this quote that I just love, and I want to share it before we move on to this next question. But you say addiction is what happens when our desire to avoid pain outweighs our capacity to endure it. Like, mind blown.
I got some angry people with that one, but I do
Really?
stand by it. The pushback I get, and I was intentionally sort of riding the edge on that one. Well, you're saying my desire to avoid pain, so you're saying it's a choice, and it's like, nope, not saying that. I'm saying there's a functionality. Addiction is not just a monster that comes and gets you. It's doing and again, I'm not saying it's good or that we should be resigned to just stay this way. I'm not saying it's a choice. I'm saying addiction's job is pain management. But addiction causes pain and kills people. I get that too. But again, remember, parts of your brain all have different motivations. Addiction is a part of you who thinks the best way for you to survive is to go to that guaranteed pain over there. Again, addiction is not good, but it is a way to decrease uncertainty. When I'm addicted to drugs, I can pretty much guarantee what my outcome is going to be.
Is there a way to show yourself, like, what else it could kind of guarantee itself that overrides that piece?
So the presence of self is really what makes all of that happen. So it's not external. It's not, let me control my partner. It's not, let me make sure that this job is always there, or make sure I always have this, whatever the thing is. It's the presence of self will make the pain that's demanded by the recovery process tolerable. The presence of self makes the grueling nature of trauma healing, which is not a pretty process. The presence of self makes that possible. The presence of self tells that addicted part, baby, you don't have to do that job anymore, because I can take this pain. I can walk with you through this pain. And again, it's not simple, and it's sort of complex and sort of like, wait, what? But that is the thing. Like, addiction's a pain problem, not a moral problem, not a choice problem. It's a pain problem. And the presence of a self then makes that process manageable. And then the next question is, well, how do I do that? And it's like, well, first we have to stop the fighting. You can't fight yourself. You got to start with your brain's on your side. All your parts are on your side. You're all on the same team, and you're not trying to get rid of anyone.
So becoming the observer of your thoughts, becoming that watcher, becoming present and aware, and what I call in oneness, is really where science and spirituality start to intersect.
Isn't it great?
Wow. Oh, yes. So
good.
So deep. So you say, and I love this quote too, doing the same things over and over and expecting different results is not a sign of insanity. It's a sign of pain.
Thank you for bringing that one. Yeah, the doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Like, that thing has been around for, I think it's been attributed to Einstein, but no one really knows who said it or the context. But like, it's accepted as gospel truth of the definition of insanity. Like, let's start with this. Insanity is a legal term. There's no such thing as an insane person. And I say this as a licensed trauma specialist clinician. Insanity is not a thing. Well, having a mental illness doesn't make you insane. Seeing things, hearing things also does not make you insane. It's like, that's a great legal thing, but there's no such thing as crazy or insanity. There's lots of other things going on. And underneath every extreme symptom, you're going to find a good reason for its presence. That's the other thing. And I've worked in patient psych with a lot of really, really extreme looking things. And when you read the case file, it's like, oh, this makes sense. And again, I'm not saying just leave them there. I'm saying it makes sense. And if it makes sense, it's not insanity. So with that said, doing the same things over and over and over again and expecting a different result is how our brains brain. Again, our brains are pattern seeking, prediction, repetition, things that will keep doing the same thing over and over in an effort to get a different outcome. But that's not insanity. That's pain. It's like you're in pain, clearly. So let's solve for pain. Let's not try to solve for sanity. And again, this has nothing to do with medication. I take psych meds, but that's not because
Sure.
I'm insane without them. It's because
Right.
my brain doesn't brain right without them.
No, I think it's just so healing on so many different levels. I mean, you study like religions and women not being part of leadership in religions for so long, and women being burned at the stake. And, even in the 1950s, lock her up in the asylum for insanity, if she's going through menopause, or she had an affair, or she did that. It's pain. It all comes back down to pain. But women really haven't been allowed to feel pain.
Oh my God. Or how many women, and I can raise my hand too, where you go to your doctor and you tell them and they say it's all in your head. I've had that
Yeah.
experience more than a few times. It's like,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to have pain. We're going to not acknowledge the reality of your pain, and we're not going to believe you about your pain. And then we wonder why anxiety, why depression, why burnout, why stress. But those are symptoms and storytellers. Those are not, they are problematic, but the
Mhm.
problem is a pain problem, not a
Mhm.
you problem.
Mhm. So I'm just listening to you and I'm watching what spirit's showing me, and it feels like a lot of your work is kind of undoing for women this process that we've been around generationally, energetically, vibrationally for eons, and really experiencing life in a completely different way. I want to say too, I've studied the work of internal family systems, but spirit and your angels, Britt, just need you to know this. Is it okay if I bring through a little message?
Yes, thank you for asking. I so appreciate that.
Um, And I only believe in bringing in positive, loving messages because sometimes people can bring in ick. And this is just for anybody listening. I don't give my energy over to just anybody. But your angels keep coming in saying that it's the way that you say things that really helps other people to hit home in their hearts and make changes and feel different
Hmm.
and see things different. And, it's Frank Schwartz who started that, right?
Dick Schwartz.
Dick Schwartz. Um, I think he's absolutely wonderful, and yet what I see Spirit say all the time is that we need messengers to keep carrying on the message in all different aspects of life. So I hope you really just stand proud in the work that you're doing and know that it's you, that nobody else could do this the way that you do, and your angels are just so proud of what a messenger you are in your life.
I received that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And thank you,
Yeah.
everybody that's here.
Amazing. So again, another cool quote that just kind of ties into what we're talking about today, breath work too, and this really hit me at my heart. Breath work can be problematic for a nervous system with unprocessed trauma. Tell us about that.
And I'm not anti breath work. I'm not anti breath work practitioners. I'm not anti people who like breath work. If you like
Yeah.
it, have at it, do it. Great. However, there's another group of us, and I say us because I figured this out just through trial and error for my own process. Breath work sometimes for some people can have the opposite effect. And again, I'll just distill it simply. I
Yeah.
have trigger warning for people. I'm about to talk about a hard thing. I have a lot of sexual assault trauma, one of which included strangulation trauma. And
Oh,
so when I try to force breath into my system or counting breaths, it triggers my fight or flight response, and my body just does not want anything forced into it. Like I do fine meditating out, I do fine with all of that, but a lot of the breathing techniques will trigger what's called sympathetic activation, which is just your brain going no 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 no, or it's actually just your brain going up 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 up, My brain was going, no, 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 no. But breath work can activate and if you have medical trauma, if you've ever been intubated and then someone tells you, take a deep breath and hold it when you count to 5, that can trigger that. And even if you don't know why, again, we don't need to know why, assume if your intuition is telling you that breath work is just not your thing, that's okay. I'm a big advocate of people for whom it works. I still can't do it. And it's fine. There's so many wonderful healing practices. Could I sit down and force myself to unlearn? Like maybe, but why?
Yeah.
So breath work can be problematic for multiple reasons on multiple levels. And again, you're not wrong. I'm a big advocate of not what's wrong with me that I can't do breath work. It's, oh, wow, this is information. My body doesn't want air being forced into it or being restricted or being managed. Great. That's a piece of information that I can now use.
Well, and what's fascinating is that we all don't have conscious memory of that. Like my
Right.
child was intubated, but she was less than 6 months old. And so that can come up and you can maybe not even realize that trauma that you had earlier on in those first couple of years.
Exactly. And, for parents who are conscious, who can tell the kids like, yay, but all of a sudden I'm in a yoga class trying to breathe and I'm crying and sweating and shaking. And I just thought, well, there's something very wrong with me. And it's like, I don't know why, but your body is very smart. Let's assume your body is on your side and it's telling you something that needs to be heard.
Fascinating. Fascinating. All right. This is another one of my favorites. And I think this is going to help so many people here. The belief that making a good decision should instantaneously produce a good feeling is one of those myths that keeps us stuck.
Yay. I love that one too, because it's so true. It's like, why do I feel worse than ever having made this good decision? And the expectation that a good thing is going to feel good is a big expectation that will keep us stuck or from persist. And I'll give you a really pithy example. Leg day feels bad. Cocaine feels good. Done. Right? Things that are good for us don't necessarily feel good. So I decided to get healthy and leave my abusive relationship and quit doing drugs. I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
And those are objectively good decisions. I had never felt worse. It was an incredible withdrawal. Again, my brain doesn't do good, bad. My brain does, we know this. Now we're not getting the thing that we know. That's bad. So we're going to make you feel bad. It's called withdrawal or detox. And so if we can set the expectation that all change, even positive change, can kind of register in your brain as bad and make you feel really, really bad before it doesn't, then we won't be so thrown off course when it happens. Like, oh, this must be the wrong decision because I don't feel good. Well, no, I don't feel good when I work out because my muscles are being ripped and all of the lactic acid, but that doesn't mean anything bad is happening. Again, cocaine before it's really, really bad feels really, really good. That's why it's addictive. That doesn't mean it is good. What feels good, what looks good does not mean the isness of that thing is good. So we have to go to what's really happening here. So making a good decision usually feels terrible before it doesn't.
Well, and I think it's something to be said about just living life too.
Mm-hmm.
Like living life isn't a fairy tale always. It's hard and it's hard work and it's grueling. And there's just going to be challenges and there's going to be things that come up. And I think what's hard is consistently making the good choice over years and years and years, even when you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, even though you don't know why Spirit's saying, take this piece of action. But again, going back to that mathematical equation, some people follow 160 times in their lifetime. Some people follow 3 million. And it's different. It feels like a different life.
And I've lived both. And I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
This one works.
I like this one too. I like this one. That's awesome. All right. I like this one too, because I like to feel at home within myself. But you say when it doesn't feel like home inside of ourselves, we'll search for it inside the people we love, the work we pursue, or the other things we buy, but it isn't there.
Yeah, that one's a bummer because And again, I have so much compassion for people who say, well, what if I can't feel a sense of home inside? And I'm like, if you don't have access to resources and basic needs and systemic things that you need, again, that's tragic, but that's not a you problem. That is often what we call moral or personal failings are systemic failings. And that does not mean that this is on you. But that said, we still want the ideal, the goal is to have the sense of home be an internal, the psychologist academic world calls this internal locus of control versus external locus of control. It's like, okay, let's just call it home is inside, which means, yes, we need other people. Yes, we're wired for connection. Yes, we need relationships and meaningful work, and like things can be fun and that's great. But home is this place inside where you know that you can be unconditionally loved. And the only place as an adult, hot take, the only place as an adult that unconditional love is available and appropriate is inside. Adults should not be in unconditionally love as the act of extending, love as the we're all one consciousness on the higher level. Yes, unconditional. But as we bring it down to we're in human bodies, it's all relationships should have conditions. If you hurt me, I may love you from the meta level, but that doesn't mean I'm going to extend love to you on the human level. And so home is an inside job.
Oh, I love how you said that. Let's just go back and say that one more time for the people who are like, that went by too fast. If somebody's harming you, you can love them from the place of oneness where your higher self, your highest self loves them unconditionally. But as your human self, you don't have to extend them love to keep getting harmed and harmed and harmed.
Exactly. I'll
Mm,
even argue it's profoundly unloving to extend love to someone causing harm. That's
mm,
enabling. So if sometimes the most loving way and kind way to be in relationships with someone is to not be. And
mm.
that's a tough pill to swallow. For I was a people pleaser fixer, I can love you into wellness, but what if the most loving thing I can do is refuse to be on the receiving end of the harm that you're causing out of your own pain?
This is a hard one for me because I believe that and I've seen that show up within my life, but I also am very aware that there's a lot of crazy cults out there that intentionally try and put a wedge between you and your family. You were in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to the difference between what we just talked about and being loving of ourselves versus this cult mentality and how people, because after I started talking about this last year in December, people reached out and they were like, Julie, I was a part of that cult, or,
Mm.
and it took a lot of strength to get out. So I want to be sensitive and respectful of that. But sometimes people can find themselves in these situations where they're being mentally manipulated. What's the difference between a
Yeah.
cult trying to remove you from your family and you being loving of yourself?
I love that question. And I've been watching the documentaries that have been coming out. And when I hear people say, well, how could they? I'm like, I get how they could. Like I've been there. And if you were to have asked me then, is this group telling you can't be like, I'm like, I would have said no out of my own free will. I am making, because they had so subtly convinced me to be afraid of all of the people around me. And so if you're around these unspiritual people, you're going to hell. So you can't let them in. If you're around your family or your friends who don't believe what we believe, demons are going to come and take over your body, and then you're going to go to hell. So it was like all roads lead to hell. It was a very fear-based, you need to restrict access to all of the outside worlds in order to be whole and safe and saved and all of that. When I chose to stop having harmful people in my life, it wasn't because I was afraid of them.
Mm,
So the way the cults do it is they install this sense of fear, and you can feel in your body whether you're blocking someone out of a fear-based place
mhm,
or out of I love myself too much to be part of this thing. Now,
mhm,
I've had things perpetrated against me. I am
mhm,
afraid of those people, like I'm
mhm,
afraid of being harmed. I'm also a woman in the world. I am
mhm,
afraid of things. But if you're saying I'm going no contact with my entire family, if I said to you why, and you're like, I don't want them, like I don't want their energy coming into me. It's like, okay, but like let's explore that. Is this
mhm,
out of a place and again, I'm not here to tell someone when and how and who they should go no contact with. I will say cults do it from a very fear-based place. You ask anyone in a cult, why aren't you talking to them? Because I don't want them to like kind of goop me. I'm paraphrasing here, but like, I don't want their stuff gooping my stuff. That's different than, you know what, I recognize your humanity, I recognize your consciousness, but I love myself too much to tolerate this or allow this. Therefore, there's a grief, there's a subtle undertone of grief to a no contact boundary that exists from love that does not exist when you're doing it from a place of fear in the same way.
These bubbles that keep popping up. It's like spirit is talking through like the visuals that keep popping up as you're talking. It's amazing. Amazing. I love how you said that. I think it's what a lot of people need to hear. So thank you for being able to share your story on that. Let's see. This is another quote of yours that I think is just like mind blown. The things we learn to call mental health problems are often our brain's best efforts at the solutions.
Yeah, mind blown when I learned that too.
Oh, and it is, and it's everything that we've been talking about today, but our brain is always trying to come up with the best solution to keep us healthy, to keep us protected. And are we wrong in calling them problems or challenges? I mean, there's just things that come up in life. What's the best words to refer to them so that we embrace them the best?
Yeah, and I'm certainly not trying to gatekeep terms, you know, like I'm big on free will. Call it whatever you want if it's useful for you. And yes, depression, anxiety, panic. I had OCD, I had trichotillomania, which is a hair pulling disorder where out of your anxiety, you just sort of like yank out your own hair all over the place. And so like these are problematic. I'm not saying they're not challenges. I'm not saying that they're not problems. But the easiest way to describe this is if my check engine light comes on in my car and I bring my car to a mechanic and I say, mechanic, my check engine light is on, they're not going to then diagnose the car with check engine light disorder. Like, what? Wait, no, the check engine light's a signal that tells me I have to bring it somewhere and someone needs to get under the hood and help me understand what the problem is. All of these things that the mental health world historically has called diseases or disorders are the check engine light of your brain's dashboard. Are they problems? Yes. Had they sometimes be life-threatening, debilitating, medically crisis? Yes, of course. But even our scariest symptoms are signals. And the mental health world is still operating off of a fundamentally outdated, like the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the big giant book that your therapist or psychiatrist diagnoses you with. There's only been 5 versions of it since like the 50s. Imagine if you were still on the 5th version of your phone. It's like, we're still using something that's only been updated 5 times, which is largely based off of like, there's political motives and profit. And again, I'm not an alarmist. Like, yes, we need that book for insurance coverage and so we can understand our symptoms. But somewhere along the way, we learn to hate ourselves and we learn to call our brain's survival efforts diseases. And again, are they problems? Yes. But let's call them what they are. They're signals, they're symptoms. Panic doesn't attack you, it signals you. So I'm big, if you're one of my clients, you know, I'm having a panic signal. I'm having a panic episode. Panic is hitting me, but it's like, I don't even like that one. Panic is happening. Okay, but it's not attacking you.
All right. And that's brilliant. Brilliant. I love the check engine, Carly. I'm going to use that in the future. You also say that there aren't 5 stages of grief, that there really aren't stages of grief. And I really wanted to bring that up for the listeners here because so many have lost somebody close to them. And instead, you refer to them as tasks of grief. So I wonder if you can kind of help people see this from your perspective.
Yeah. And full disclosure, not my perspective. The 5 stages of grief, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with that model. And it's a beautiful, compassionate model that she developed for people dying, not for people who have lost people. So the 5 stages of grief were for people that were contending with life-threatening illnesses as they were nearing the end of that illness. So 5 stages of grief were never intended for people in a divorce or losing a loved one or whatever the loss might be. The 4 tasks of grief is not my model. Dr. Warden, J. William Warden over at Harvard, who is like the premier expert in this, the 4 tasks of grief, that's his model. And it is the gold standard in grief work. And the 4 tasks are, it's such a, for me, it makes more sense because grief doesn't happen in nice, neat, clean stages. The 4 tasks of grief that Worden outlines are: number 1, accept that the thing happened. That is a lot easier said than done. Sometimes task 1 can take years or a lifetime. Like, it happens. They're gone. The thing happened. And I'm paraphrasing these tasks. So apologies. I've never met the man, but paraphrasing. Task 2, feel your feelings. Again, that one can take years or decades. You have to identify them, you have to feel them, and not feeling flooded by them. Feeling your feelings doesn't mean I'm now overwhelmed by my feelings. Feeling your feelings means there's enough observer available that you can be with the feeling instead of being flooded by the feeling. That's, again, easier said than done. Task 3 is to figure out what adjustments in your life need to happen. So if you lost a partner who was the financial person, well, now I need to learn how to do finances. That's a task 3 thing. And then task 4 is about meaning making. I call it the now what task. It's like, okay, I've accepted that it's happened. I felt my feelings. I've adjusted my life to accommodate for the absence of this person or this thing. Now what? What are my choices now? How do I make my life meaningful? Even with, you don't get over grief. You don't get over loss. It becomes part of the fabric of who you are.
That's incredible. My goodness, Britt, you are just such a breath of fresh air, and you have just such this beautiful perspective. And I see you as a messenger yourself. I'm just so thankful for you and the work that you put out into this world. I hope that you can tell everybody where they can find your book, your workbook. Your book is The Science of Unstuck. Your workbook, we'll put that all in the show notes below. Your website, Instagram, lay it all out there.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Oh my goodness. I could have gone for another hour. So my book, The Science of Stuck and the Getting Unstuck workbook, are available wherever you buy books. My Insta is at Britt Frank. Britt has 2 T's. It's not short for Brittany. It's just Britt. And my website is scienceofstuck.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, friends, for listening today. And Britt, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Friends, I need your help reaching as many people as possible. If you'd like to support this podcast and help us spread more hope to the world, please book a session with me, join my angel membership, or take my angel Reiki school. What's the difference? If you'd like to know what messages your angels and loved ones have for you, you'll want to book a session with me. The angel membership is all about your own personal spiritual healing. The membership takes you on a spiritual journey that teaches you how to create your own heaven on earth. And the Angel Reiki School is for those who want to get certified in mediumship, angel messages, and energy healing all at once. These are 3 ways you can help us share a message of hope and love with more people than ever before. Register for one or all 3 at theangelmedium.com. That's theangelmedium.com. Now, let's pray together. As we do, I want you to pray in a way where you feel as though everything you want for yourself and the world has already come true, and you're giving thanks. Why? Because this is the best way to manifest. So let's begin. God, universe, source, thank you. We're so grateful that you've blessed this world with calm and peace for all. This calm and peace has spread like ripples, soothing the hearts of every soul. Thank you for opening our hearts to abundance, allowing each of us to live our most authentic life, and helping us to create our own heaven on earth. We thank you for the love and deep heart-to-heart connection that surrounds us every day in our relationships. We thank you for the abundance of health and aliveness we feel radiating from every cell in our and our families' bodies. Thank you for the gift of walking this life with us and guiding us every step of the way through your messages. We hear you through our own intuition, and we feel you walking right by our sides, and we overflow with gratitude. Thank you for financial abundance, an abundance of opportunities and miracles, blessings, and prosperity in every way. We know that you want us to succeed so that we can show others how you want them to succeed too. Thank you for the boundless love, kindness, empathy, and compassion that binds us all together. Thank you for the laughter, fun, moments of pure delight that fill us every day, especially today. God, Universe Source, thank you for blessing us beyond measure and allowing us to use our souls, gifts, talents, skills, and abilities to serve the world. We love you. I love you. And in this we pray. Amen. Friends, we're working on some pretty major things over here. And if you wouldn't mind saying a little prayer that these things come to fruition if they're God's will, we'd so appreciate it. And please add a little prayer in for any specific thing you need right now, too. Have a beautiful, blessed day. And don't forget to submit your contact info at theangelmedium.com if you'd like me to channel the name of one of your angels for you. Sending you peace, bliss, and many blessings.